Hello there, and welcome back to another Intro to Excel. As always, my name is David Eitel, and in this episode, we're going to be looking at the week number, ISO week number, and kind of building a basic calendar for your spreadsheets. This kind of goes around what we're talking about involving understanding dates and understanding kind of how to build a date or how Excel stores dates. If you haven't seen the dates or the year frac video, feel free to take a look at that. It'll kind of help encapsulate what we're talking about here. Let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is that in some organizations, we don't always measure things in terms of months or years. We'll sometimes do things based on week number, or we'll do things based on like a kind of custom calendar. For instance, if you work in a clinical environment, your schedule might be a 4-week calendar, it might be a 6 weeks, 8-week calendar, and being able to determine the week number, meaning the week number of the year, and then stretch it to the next week numbers, for instance, could be very valuable or useful in your daily practice. In terms of talking about week ISO, well, it gets a little bit more complicated there, but let's just talk about it when we get there. So right here we have our data. Our raw data can come from something like invoice numbers, right? Something like shipments that are coming into your supply department, and you get an invoice every week. And so let's say you want to confirm either the weeks that the invoice is coming in on or the day that it's coming in on. You're going to want to use a formula like the week number formula. So equals week number. Week number. Now weekday, week number, and ISO week. Weekday we already talked about in our last video, so we'll skip over that one. We'll do week number. And for this one, it's looking for a serial number. Now the serial number is, like we talked about previously, it's a number that equates to a date. So it has to actually equal, or in the back end format, a date. We're going to click this one over here, and we want the return type to be the start of our day. The start of our week is going to be a Sunday. You can see here that this kind of changes based on whether or not your system begins on an 11-day work week with a Monday, a 12-day week with a Tuesday. Like it kind of changes here based on how your week system begins. It's easiest just to say Sunday. For most, American calendars, that's what it's going to be. We'll hit 1, we'll hit enter, and you'll see that's week 1, all the way down week 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way down to week 53, right here. Now, most years, right, include a 52 or a 53 week year. 52 weeks divided by 2, so 2 weeks in a pay period, gets us 26 pay periods. You could further divide this with a section like that. From from this date to this date is this pay period, and you'll see some of that stuff as we continue to build our employee database. Now, week ISO is how things kind of run in a financial system. If we do week number ISO, or ISO week number, it returns the ISO. Now, ISO, there's a standard for it. If we want to look into it, you can come here to function, and you can say help on this function, and it'll even take you to the support office website. It can tell you why ISO week is the way it is, like, what's the required date, the syntax. If you're still getting used to Excel and you're kind of figuring out where to find good resources, never skimp on the support pages by Microsoft. They're really good. We'll hit cancel here. We'll do week again, week number, ISO, and we'll select our same day, close parentheses, and hit 1. Now, this is where you might get confused. Week number ISO kicks out 53, whereas week number just kicks out 1. And that's because one of them is a calendar system and the other one is a financial system. So what that's saying is that the week, right, the week as itself, starts in 2020, which means 1/1/2021 is actually part of the 53rd week of the previous year. We can see that if we just skip this down, it changes the week structure of our year, which means our first week starts really at 1/8. And it seems kind of benign, like maybe it's not useful, but trust me, you'll find when you're working with Kronos or Workday or other financial systems that if you're going to use week numbers as a filtration method, like that'll be it. And that's kind of the key value of using week number or ISO week to begin with. Like let's say you're doing a COUNTIF or a SUMIF function and you want to sum if the date that this happened was between week numbers 10 and 15. That's how this function can really be used. It's not so much to just display data, it's really used as a way to filter out data. And that helps us get to our next thing we're going to talk about, and that's calendars. In almost every spreadsheet that I build, I'll build a small or basic calendar into the spreadsheet. Now, the reason I do this is because a lot of my spreadsheets will have some sort of, lookif or like a lookup function or a if function or a countif function that I need to use time periods in. So I'll need to have a month, a start date, and an end date to reference in my formulas. Now I can write them in, but it means if I use that formula later on in the year, or if I want to use it over a number of years, it doesn't update automatically. And that's where building a calendar like this can be really, really useful. You'll start with something like this. You'll start with just writing out the months in text. You could do this technically as you could kick this out and just put in numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, but that's not very automated, right? We want to automate things as best we can. So we have a function that's going to kick us from the month that we type in to the actual month that we need for any of our year, date, year fraction formulas. So we'll type in month, and then the serial number is actually going to be a little bit different. Instead of putting in a specific value, we're going to put date value, which is a kind of formula that's used to help you figure out the date value of something. It's a sub formula. You won't be using it that often, but it's kind of useful here. We'll use the and function. Where's our and? There we go. And then we'll put in quotes 1, 1. And that basically sets the date value to a month and the first day of that month. It's complicated. We won't get too deep into it. That'll give us what we need there. And there we go. We can see we have our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way down to 12. Now, building a start date and an end date of a month, if it's a leap year, or if, I'm not really good at remembering, which months have, 30 days, 28 days, 31 days. I'm not good. February has 28, 3 out of 4 years, as far as I know. So I like to build these type of calendars where I can automate it. So we're going to build using the date function, right? Very easy. The date is always going to start with the year that we can manually input, the month, which we've just calculated, and the day is always going to be the first. So we're going to lock in our reference for the year because we don't want that to change, but we're not going to lock in our reference for the month because that'll just go down as we need it to. See, just boom, there we go. So we have the first day of each month in the 2021 year or 2020 year, 2021, it updates automatically. Now, I can't just go here and hit this plus 30, right, on every single month. If I did that, I would actually be a little incorrect. You can see February takes us March. You can't build a function based off of just putting a guaranteed, plus 28 or plus 29. Because these are integers, by adding a value to them, we're adding the date, right? So if we take the 1, January 1st, and we add 1, it'll give us January 2nd. Well, by that same logic, we can subtract from the previous month's first day to get the last day of the previous month. So we'll say 2, 1 minus, we'll say 2, 1 minus 1. And there we have it. Now, if we go all the way down, bloop, we have a little bit of a problem here, don't we? Because there's no reference here. So we have to build something a little bit unique. Again, December, I think, always has 30 days. So we could just build or 31 days. So it equals this plus 30. And we're always going to have 31. That'll work. But it isn't a formula now. And it means we didn't automate it as much as we can. This is much more useful. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a date formula again. Equals date. We're going to hit date. We want the year to be the next year. So we're going to parentheses 2021 plus 1. And then we're going to have the month, comma, be January. Then we have the day be the first. So that gives us 1, 122. And then we're going to subtract 1 from it. And there we go. We have 1231. Seems kind of weird, but I think it works for me pretty well. And like I said, I put it in a lot of my spreadsheets because I'll build something like a countif, countif equals countif. And then one of my formulas or one of my functions, my criteria will be greater than the start date or less than the end date of a specific month. So that kind of concludes what we wanted to talk about when it comes to managing weeks and days and months and kind of building a little calendar. This is really just basic information to help you when you start developing bigger spreadsheets that are more integrated. So you'll see this a little bit later on. That's everything for today. I hope you found that somewhat useful, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one.